There is a Japanese art of building real wealth on a modest salary, and it has almost nothing to do with how much you earn. Let me show you what I mean with a small picture my grandmother once drew for me. Imagine two men standing out in the rain. The first man holds a massive bucket, and the bottom of that bucket has 100 holes punched through it. The rain pours in, but it pours straight out again just as fast. He runs, he tilts it, he chases every cloud, and when the storm finally passes, his bucket is empty. He is soaked, he is exhausted, and he has nothing. The second man holds only a small steel cup, solid, with no holes at all. For him, the sky offers just a thin drizzle, yet he catches every drop. When the cup is full, he pours it carefully into a barrel, and then he begins to fill it again. When the storm ends, the man with the enormous bucket is on his knees begging for a sip of water, and the man with the little cup is rich. This is the modern world almost exactly. We are obsessed with income. We believe the whole answer to our worries is simply to make more money, to earn a bigger flow of rain. We look at the man with the little cup and we pity him because his drizzle looks so small. We look at the man with the enormous bucket and we envy him because his storm looks so grand. And we have it entirely backward. If you make more money while your habits stay broken, you are only pouring more water into a bucket full of holes. You do not become wealthy. You just speed up the waste and you tire yourself out doing it. I have watched men win a raise they chased for years and be no richer 12 months later because the raise poured into the same old holes. The size of the storm was never the problem. The holes were the problem. And the good news my grandmother wanted me to hear is this: you do not need a bigger storm. You only need to mend your cup. My name is Kenji Sato, raised by my grandmother in the old Japanese ways of thrift, patience, and quiet contentment. So if that speaks to you, please consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Now let me hand you the steel cup she gave me because it has a name. The Japanese have understood the parable of the two men for a very long time. In the year 1904, a woman named Hani Motoko, widely remembered as Japan's first female journalist, gave ordinary households a tool for it. She called it Kakeibo, which we can translate as the household financial ledger. It was not an app, it was not a spreadsheet glowing on a screen. It was a physical book and a pen, nothing more, and it carried inside it a whole philosophy of living. Kakeibo asked you to sit down and face your own spending with your own hand. It is one of the quiet reasons Japanese families have long been able to save a meaningful share of a very ordinary income. They did not out-earn their neighbors in the West, they outkept them. So let us begin where Kakeibo begins, with a hard question. Why are we so poor at holding on to money? My grandmother would have answered simply, the money has become invisible. Think about how you spend today. You tap a card against a machine, you click a button that says buy now. You hold your phone near a reader and a light turns green. You save your card details so that a future purchase takes only a single thumb. At no point do you feel the money leave your hand. This is what the modern world calls frictionless spending, and please understand, it did not happen by accident. Enormous companies spent years and fortunes removing every scrap of friction between your desire and your wallet, because the easier it is to pay, the more you pay. Every extra second of hesitation was studied and then smoothed away, not for your benefit, but for theirs. They learned that a moment of doubt is a moment you might keep your money, and so they set out to erase your doubt. There is a real truth of the mind underneath this. When you hand over paper cash, a small ache registers in the brain. Scientists call it the pain of paying. It is a gentle warning, a signal that something of yours is leaving. When you tap a card instead, that ache is numbed. You feel nothing at the moment of the purchase, and the true cost only arrives weeks later on a statement, long after the coffee is drunk and the thing is forgotten. Kakeibo does something very clever. It puts the friction back. It forces you to write down every single expense by your own hand. When you must write the word coffee and then write its price beside it on a clean page, you pause. The pen is slow where the tap was fast, and that slowness is the whole point. In the space of that pause, a question has room to appear. You ask yourself calmly and honestly whether that cup was worth the ink. The invisible becomes visible again, and once you can see it, you begin to understand what you are truly spending, which is not paper at all. It is your own life energy, the hours you traded to earn it. Kakeibo opens each month with 4 simple questions, and I want you to hold them like 4 stones in your palm. The first question is, how much money do I have coming in? That is your income. The second is, how much would I like to save? That is your goal, chosen on purpose. The third is, how much must I spend on things I cannot avoid? Those are your fixed costs. And the fourth is, the gentle one that carries all the growth in it. How can I improve? Now here is where Kakeibo turns the ordinary way of living upside down. Most people spend first, and then save whatever happens to be left at the end of the month, which, as you already know, is usually nothing at all. Kakeibo reverses the order completely. Income minus savings equals your spending money. You pay yourself first. You lift the savings out the moment the money arrives, you set it safely aside, and then you live on whatever remains. I know this sounds almost too simple to matter, but sit with it a moment. The person who saves what is left over is trusting the weakest part of himself, the part at the end of the month that is tired and tempted, to guard his future. The person who saves first has already protected his future before the temptations of the month even begin. He has moved the treasure out of the leaking bucket and into the sealed barrel while the storm is still young. This one reversal, savings before spending rather than spending before savings, is the hinge on which the whole practice turns. This creates something my grandmother prized, a useful scarcity. When there is a firm and honest limit in front of you, you grow creative. You cook the meal instead of ordering it. You find that you already own something that will do the job. You begin to prioritize what you truly need over what you merely want, not because a book told you to, but because the limit itself teaches you. Scarcity chosen on purpose is not poverty. It is a kind of training, the way a narrow riverbank gives the water its power. And I will give you one more small rule that changes everything. Look at your budget, not at your bank balance. The balance is a liar. It shows you a comfortable number, but hidden inside that number is next week's rent, the coming bills, and the savings you already promised yourself. Spend against the balance and you will spend money that was never truly yours to spend. The budget tells the truth, the balance only flatters you. Once you are writing things down, Kakeibo asks you to sort every expense into 4 buckets, and knowing which bucket a thing falls into is half of the whole practice. The first bucket is survival, your true needs. Rent, food, utilities, transport, medicine. You cannot cut these to zero and you should never try, but you can nearly always optimize them with patience and attention. The second bucket is optional, your wants. Dining out, shopping, drinks with friends, the many small subscriptions that drain away without a sound. Understand this clearly. The second bucket is where the whole battle is won or lost. This is the leak in the bottom of the great bucket. The third one surprised me as a boy, and I have come to love it. It is culture, books, museums, a course that teaches you a real skill, an evening that feeds something in you that lasts. The spending grows the mind, and my grandmother saw it as an investment rather than an expense, a seed rather than a cost, though she still insisted it be written down and tracked honestly like everything else, because even a good thing can slip into excess when it goes unwatched. The fourth bucket is the extra and the unexpected, a repair, a gift, a thing that breaks when you least expect it. Life will always send these, and the wise person expects the unexpected and keeps a little set aside for it, so that a broken washing machine is an inconvenience rather than a catastrophe. Now, the practice that keeps all of this alive is small and daily. Every evening, spend just a few minutes writing that day's receipts into their buckets while the memory is still warm. Do not wait. There is a reason for the timing. When you write it down that same night, the small sting of a wasteful evening is still fresh, and that honest sting is what stops you from repeating it tomorrow. If you let a week pass, the memory blurs, the numbers turn into a fog, and the lesson is lost. Waiting until the end of the month to look is like performing an autopsy on a patient who is already gone. You learn what killed them, but far too late to help. Kakeibo is not an autopsy. It is a daily checkup on something still very much alive, your own financial life. My grandmother did this at the same hour each night, after the dishes were dried, with a cup of tea beside the book, and she treated those few minutes not as a chore but as a small and steadying ritual, a moment of honesty before sleep. For that second bucket, the wants, my grandmother trusted one method above all others, and it is beautifully simple. Use cash. At the start of the month, withdraw your fun money, the amount you have decided you may enjoy, and place it in an envelope. You can hold it in your hand. You can see it. When the envelope is empty, the fun is over for that month. There is no overdraft. There is no card to reach for. There is no invisible line of credit waiting to rescue your impulse. If you spend it all in the first week, then you sit at home for 3 weeks and you learn, in your own body, how to pace yourself. That lesson is uncomfortable the first time, and it is priceless, because your body remembers it long after your mind would have forgotten a stern word. You cannot argue with an empty envelope. It buys nothing, no matter how much you want it to. Now, a prepaid card loaded with a fixed amount can serve the same purpose, and if that suits your life, use it. But I will tell you honestly that physical cash retrains the mind best, because a stack of bills growing thinner in your fingers gives you a real and bodily sense of time running out. A number on a screen never quite manages that. For those same ones, Kakeibo adds one more guard, and it may be the single most powerful habit in the whole practice. It is the cooling off period. When you find yourself wanting something that is not a true survival need, do not buy it. Write it down on a wish list, and then wait 30 days. Most of the time, when those 30 days have passed, you will discover the wanting has simply faded on its own, and you save that money by doing absolutely nothing. And if, after a full month, you still want the thing with the same steady desire, then buy it, and buy it with a clear intention and no guilt at all. What this rule breaks is the little loop of the mind that shopping feeds, the quick flash of pleasure that fades the moment the box is opened. You have felt it. The wanting is always sharper than the having. We chase the moment of buying far more than we ever enjoy the thing itself, and the 30-day wait gently pulls those two apart so you can see them clearly. It also breaks a sadder habit, the habit of treating anxiety and loneliness with a purchase, when a purchase was never the medicine we truly needed. My grandmother understood that a restless heart will reach for something to buy the way a tired body reaches for something to eat, not from true hunger, but from a wish to feel better for a moment. The wait gives that restless heart time to settle, and more often than not, it settles on its own, and the money stays in the barrel where it belongs. Now I want to give you two old words that sit at the heart of all this. The first is monozukuri, a deep respect for materials and for the craftsmanship that shapes them, a love of things that are made well. It is the reason a good knife is sharpened rather than discarded, the reason a well-built chair is passed from a grandfather to a grandson. The second is its close relative, matanai, the honest regret we feel over waste, the small sorrow of seeing something good thrown away before its time. My grandmother would say matanai over a heel of bread. over a length of string, over the last light of a useful afternoon. Kakeibo teaches you to love what you already own, polish your old shoes before you go looking for new ones, clean and care for your old phone before you replace it. Mend the coat, sharpen the blade, oil the hinge. When you tend to your things, you extend their lives, and something quiet happens inside you at the same time. Your hunger for the new begins to soften. Remember, the whole consumer economy needs you to feel a low, steady dissatisfaction, because a contented person is a poor customer. So to find real satisfaction in maintaining and repairing what you own is a small and gentle rebellion. It makes you the master of your own material world rather than its servant, and a master, unlike a servant, is never desperate. Then, at the close of every month, Kakeibo asks you to sit down and do the most important thing of all, review and reflect. We call this reflection hansei. You take your actual spending and you lay it beside the budget you set, and you ask yourself the honest questions. Where did I fail this month? Why did I spend so much on food delivered to my door? Was I lazy that week, or was I stressed, or was I sad? And most important, how will I fix this next month? Please hear me carefully. This is not a session of self-punishment. My grandmother never once used the ledger to shame me. This is data collection. You are a scientist studying your own behavior with calm and curious eyes. You look for your triggers, the moments that reliably lead you to overspend, and then you plan a free and better alternative for each one. A walk instead of a costly takeout. A long bath instead of an evening of shopping on your phone. A pot of tea and a friend instead of an expensive night out that leaves you tired and poorer. This monthly loop is what we call kaizen, the practice of small continuous improvement, the same patient idea that Japanese craftsmen use to perfect their work over a lifetime. You do not leap to perfection in a single month. You simply grow a little tighter, a little wiser, every single month, one small correction at a time, until one day you look up and notice you are saving a third of your income or more, and you never once felt deprived along the way. That is the quiet magic of it. The change is so gradual that it never feels like sacrifice, and yet the result, seen from a distance of a year, is enormous. And now we come to the heart of everything, the truth the two men in the rain were teaching us all along. Wealth is a ratio, not a number. It is the gap between what you bring in and what you let go. Read that again slowly, because our whole culture wants you to believe the opposite. Wants you to believe wealth is simply a large income displayed for others to see. Picture a person who earns a great deal and spends every bit of it. The fine car, the large home, the long holidays, all of it borrowed against next month. That person has no wealth at all, none, and is only 30 days from ruin if the job disappears. Now picture a person who earns modestly but spends far, far less than that. No one on the street would guess it. Yet that second person owns something the first can only dream of. That person owns freedom. That person owns their own time. That person can sleep through a storm that would destroy his wealthier looking neighbor. You cannot always control your income. The storm gives what it gives. But you can control your spending today, this afternoon, with the very next thing you buy or choose not to buy. And every amount you save is like a small and loyal worker you have hired. Each one goes out and buys you back a day you will not have to labor for. A handful of them together can buy you a week of calm when illness comes, or the courage to leave work that harms you, or the patience to wait for something better. So do not think of your savings as money you are forbidden to touch. Think of it as freedom you have already purchased and set aside, waiting there in the barrel for the day you need it. Your whole life, when you look at it honestly, is a ledger of limited time and limited resources. And Kakeibo in the end is a mirror. Your spending shows you exactly what you value, whether you meant it to or not. If you tell yourself that your family matters most, yet the pages show you spend almost nothing on them, and a great deal on a single private hobby, then the ledger is telling you a truth your words were hiding, and the mirror does not scold, it only shows. What you do with what it shows is entirely yours to choose. So the work is to align your spending with your soul, to make the pages match the heart, so that what you say you love and what you actually pay for become the same thing at last. Patch the holes in the bucket, pick up the pen. Riches do not begin with a lottery ticket, or with a sudden windfall, or with a bigger storm falling from the sky. They begin with a plain notebook, a steady hand, and the willingness to look honestly at what is already flowing through your fingers. So here's my invitation to you, a small challenge to carry out of this video and into your real life. For the next 7 days, write down by hand every single thing you spend, no matter how tiny. The coffee, the parking, the app, all of it. At the end of the week, take a colored pen and circle everything that fell into the wants bucket. Then add those circles up. I promise you will be gently shocked at how much you were setting on fire without ever noticing the flame. You do not need to change anything in that first week. You do not need to deny yourself or feel ashamed. You only need to watch, the way a gardener watches the soil before he plants, the way my grandmother watched the kettle before she made the tea. Awareness truly is the first step, and it is a step you can take tonight with nothing more than a scrap of paper and a moment of honesty. Everything else, the buckets and the envelope and the monthly reflection, can grow from that single small seed once it is planted. And when you sit down to write that first line, say the old vow of Kakeibo to yourself, the same vow my grandmother taught me at her low wooden table many years ago. I master my money. It does not master me. Say it, mean it, and then begin.